Thanks for having me. My name is Tova Bele. I have been making video games since 1998, but that's actually PC, video, and mobile games. And about 16 years ago, I was working for a company in Vienna called Sendex, and we were doing very fast-paced mobile games. And the requirement for that is that you have to have an idea very quickly, and you need to be able to create it within a very tight time and money budget, of course. And during that time, I developed a technique called core experience. And I never told anybody about it. But I've been using it ever since. And I thought, you know, maybe people would actually benefit if I shared that. It's a very small idea, so this is one of the talks that's going to be over very quickly. And I wrote all this stuff down in hospital this year because I spent a very long time being sick, and I had a phone with me and I got really bored, so I thought I'm going to do a presentation on my iPhone because I've never done that before. That's why I had to connect the Apple TV. So if it doesn't work at some point, please forgive me. It's the second time I'm giving this presentation. Right, that's the end boss of the game Nemesis 2, and it has a core, and the goal of the game is to shoot the core, which is something you all don't know yet anymore, but never mind. It's a game. So, the concept of the core experience is that it's player-centric, because we actually, I assume most of us are players as well. And I use this as a base to have a common denominator. Who is this concept for? It's actually for everybody. If you're a game designer, a producer, a programmer, audio artist, whoever, I assume that at some point you want to make a game. If you don't, then that won't help you. But you want to make a game that you came up with. If somebody else came up with the game that you're supposed to make, you will have to work with that person, because it's about this core idea that you had when you thought of the game for the first time. It's basically usually something like a short video clip that plays in your mind when you think about the game, and it can be anything. That's the nice thing about it. That's why it works so well. There's different design methods in the video games industry. Oh yeah, and sorry, I have to say this first. This talk was made for the HTL Spengergasse in Vienna, which is a school that teaches video game creation. So some of these things might sound a bit basic, or you know, like you've all heard this before. This was made for 15 to 16-year-olds. So basically, it also contains production phases and stuff like that. But it ties in really nicely with the method, and that's why I'm combining this. So there's a very popular design method right now for video games that people use a lot. It's called a genre. Basically, it's the classic, oh, I really like playing Souls-likes, so I'm going to make a Souls-like game. Okay, so people do that. It's very popular, it's very nice, because most of the rules exist already, so you don't have to reinvent them. The problem is, if you make a game within a genre, you will probably copy concepts that you don't know why they exist and how they evolved in the first place. So you run the risk of doing something without knowing why, and that's usually recognizable at some point. At the worst case, it's recognized by the players at the end, and they go like, why did they do it? Like, this doesn't work with the game. You know, it works in Dark Souls, but it really doesn't work in Epic Mickey. So, you know, like, you don't want to do that. But you can. Here's two examples. Witch Survivor, which I just came up with. It's basically you play a witch and it's being surrounded by zombies and you have to run away. Great concept. And there's the witch-like genre, of course, where you have a witch with a big sword and you have giant enemies, and yeah, if you die, then you have to go back and pick up your witch swords. Then there's another way of making a video game, which is called My Favorite Game But Different, trademark. It's very popular with managers or people that run big companies, usually after their kids got a new game and they're like, you know what, I saw them playing Epic Mickey yesterday, it's really nice, why don't we do something like that but in Star Wars? So, you know, that's also a way to approach a game. You can also use this approach with the core experience. I will show you later. So yeah, here we have GTA meets Star Wars. Basically, you beat some like a TIE fighter pilot up, and then you get to steal the TIE fighter. And then there's classic design methods that have been around for ages. From the 17th century, we have MDA, which is mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics. So basically, you create your game out of a couple of mechanics that are really fun to do. And then the interplay of those create dynamics. And the way that the dynamics are then transported to the player are usually an aesthetic thing. So in that case, we have a game where you drop balls, which is the mechanic, and the dynamic is that when they land on a spring, then people are flung into space, and the aesthetic of the game is basically you have a lot of flying people that surround the planet Earth. So that would be a typical art house game, also doable with this. Sorry, did it rotate? Yeah. So it works with all of these things or even more, but you have to trust your gut feeling, because the first thing that you thought of when you thought of this game that you want to make is probably something very true, and it's very precious. You are going to lose that thing easily, because that's the way of development. Sometimes you drift off, sometimes other things come into focus. So try to keep that somewhere. And it can be anything. It can be an interaction. For example, I once made a game that was based on the principle that we have only one button to press. It was a mobile game. We said we want to do a fast-paced action game with combos, and it has to be playable with a button that you press or you don't press. The game was about a bee. When you press the button, the bee would start circling a flower, and when you release the button, the bee would take off at the tangent of the position where it was at that point in time. And that worked really well. And there's other things you can do. You can have the feeling of being very alone in a wide world and on sand dunes, and you know it's very quiet. And suddenly you see somebody in the distance, and then suddenly you have journey. Or there's a music, for example. You can make a game about the feeling, what it's like to walk around in an empty, deserted village, and suddenly the sound of a siren wakes up zombies. So it's about this musical thing. Now, that thing, this core experience, you have to keep that because you want to work on this. But where do you go from this? And now I'm talking to you like you're 14-year-old students at the HTL Sprengergasse. This is the fun thing now that happens. This is one of the nicest phases. You basically map all the dependencies of your idea. In the center, you have your idea, and around it, you have all the things that are derived from that. In our case, in the B game, for example, we knew we needed to have something like a score combo counter. We needed to have something like physics. We needed to have a flying bee. We wanted to have different colored flowers, so it would make a difference which ones you harvest in what order, all that sort of stuff. And suddenly you come up with all these, oh wait, let's add another idea. So you have all these really great ideas that you think that you want to see in your game about whatever it is. That's the fun part, as I said. But the thing is, you have to at some point stop and then identify the crucial aspects that actually really will need to feed into those core experiences. And this is really hard. You have to be very honest. You can't just have everything in the game. I mean, you can wish for it, but at the end of the day, you will be cutting a lot of the things that are actually not part of that one core experience. So you end up with a couple of things that we can't do GTA without the vehicles, so we probably need to keep the vehicles in the game, and we can't do the zombie game without the zombies, otherwise it will be a game about zombies that used to be there. So you have a couple of things that remain, and then you can still think about how important those are, so you prioritize those. Yeah, must-have and options, I just said that. And the cuts will happen. So, be very honest about that. That's student talk again. You will be surprised how much stuff will not make it into the final game. And then when you have those things and you decided that this is going to support your core experience, and if you're lucky, it's a very small number because that will allow you to focus on that, then you make prototypes. And prototypes are, I cannot stress this enough, they have two reasons to live. One of them is that they prove that this is going to work. And the other one is that they prove this is not going to work. And that's actually quite cool because when you know something is just not going to work, then you don't have to invest time into it anymore. And you can let it die. Kill your darlings, especially in video games. So you end up with a set of maybe 3 or 4 prototypes that will make up your game experience, and that's something really nice to have. The thing about prototypes is only go into production when you're sure that the prototypes themselves actually work. You can probably start programming them again, you can make them new, rearrange them, switch from ActionScript to C#, but production is not pre-production anymore. You don't want to be still experimenting on your prototypes. in production, you should be sure that you have those things working already, and then you start cooking. Basically, you take all your prototypes and fill them with content, variation. You know that now that you have the bee flying around a flower in one color, you can add 5 different flowers with different colors, and then this works. And you can always go back and test that against your core experience and think, is this still the thing that I came to do? Are we still true to that one idea? And if you're really lucky and you have the time and the budget and the people, then you can do something. Wait, this is the wrong slide. Oh yeah. Before you get to finishing, you can do the user testing. And the sooner you do that, the better, because that's a very painful part, but it's the most honest part. This is where you get people to play those things that you are so sure that they actually work. And you still have your core experience for all these prototypes in your mind. And then you look at somebody play the game, and they will most likely do something you did not expect. And that's really good, because that tells you, oh, okay, maybe I didn't see that one thing. The wood was full of so many different colored trees. I was flying around the wrong trees. But those people are the last line of defense before it goes out into the wild world of customers, and they will criticize you relentlessly and basically just ignore you if the game is not fun enough, if you don't do that first. So do your user testing once you are sure that you have something that works. Prototype user testing also works. The people at Broken Rules, for example, do it like that. They would just actually take their iPad, go out into the Museumsquartier in Vienna and ask random strangers to play something. And the trick at that is, bring a notebook or a video camera, but don't tell them anything. Just tell them how it works in the beginning and then shut up. You know, never explain your game. Assume that this is now in their hand and just see what they do. This is really a good thing. And if you're really happy and lucky, lucky, and then you can be happy, they will later tell you something that resembles your core experience that you were aiming for, and they will say like, yeah, you know, that thing that you did there with the bees flying around the TIE fighter, it felt a bit like GTA, and you're like, yeah, awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And if you have any questions, then you can reach me later. I will be outside having a beer. Thank you all for this rambling high school presentation. Oh yeah, and it's important also, don't forget to have fun making video games. Thanks a lot.